Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are new. In today's video, we're going to be ranking my concealers. I'm going to walk you through the concealers that I own in a ranking format and let you know why they're placing where they're at. So I have 8 concealers. I just recently did a makeup inventory. So if you're wanting to see like my whole collection and how much makeup I own in general, I'm going to have that linked in the eye and down below for you. But today we're going to be really focusing in just on one category. That's concealers, of course. So we'll start out at number 8, work our way to number 1. I did have a pretty hard time ranking some of these. Some were more obvious than others, and I'll explain. I did think about doing a ranking system. I think I might do that moving forward, but for today, I kind of wanted to try it just like how I usually do, but maybe think about it in different ways and really explain different portions of like the product itself as far as like what the categories could be. Let me know what you would rather see down below. I really like Sarah Rose's ranking style, and I think I might do something like that moving forward. Before we jump into it, I did want to mention that I do actually really like a medium coverage concealer. I typically go for a pretty medium coverage base all around between my foundation and concealer. I want my concealer to be creamy. I understand everything's pretty much going to crease, especially like right here under the under eyes, but I typically set with powder and don't have to worry about that so much. But just wanted to put that out there. Those are kind of my preferences. I like for it to be pretty creamy, but it doesn't have to be overly dewy or hydrating. I just want it to look nice and kind of like satin-like on the skin and at least provide roughly a medium amount of coverage for me. So with those things being said, let's go ahead and jump into number 8. Unfortunately, number 8 is the one I have on right now. It is the Colourpop Pretty Fresh Concealer. Now, I actually posted a video where I created this look on Wednesday. I'll also have that video linked in the eye and down below for you if you want to see this in action, but it's just not good. I do not like this, just to be totally honest. I just don't think that it's as good as I think it should be. I love the Pretty Fresh foundation and the primer. I don't know why, I just don't like this concealer as much as those. Well, I do know why, I'll tell you why, but this just does not sit well on my skin. Today's actually probably the best that it's ever looked. I do have powder on over the concealer though, so it's gonna look a little bit better anyways, on camera at least. But when I put this on, it typically just kind of looks like something is just sitting on my skin. It hardly ever really sinks into the skin, no matter what I have underneath it. It actually works probably the worst with the Pretty Fresh foundation. This combo just does not work for me. Currently, I have on the Koki foundation, and this actually sat pretty well on top of it, comparatively speaking, but I just don't like this. I think that it feels nice and creamy, so I do like that about it. The packaging is cute. It's just kind of like so-so, and if this is anything like the lip gloss packaging that this kind of looks like, the writing would kind of wear off quickly, so I don't love the packaging, but I think it's okay. The formula of it feels very creamy. The color of it's pretty good. I do have this one in the shade Fair 20 in, and it's a pretty good shade match for me, but also in the actual tube, you can see like a little bit of lightness right here, and in person, it just doesn't look even. Like the pigmentation within its own bottle just doesn't look like they like stirred it up enough before they put it into the packaging. So I feel like it's not exactly accurate to what comes out every time. That's just not really great in my opinion. The doe foot's pretty nice, it's pretty standard, but it is a little bit flimsy, so I don't mind it. I do like the doe foot, okay, but overall this concealer is just definitely not the best to me. The value's fine, I guess. It's a drugstore price and you are getting a pretty good size package, but they're so misleading with how large the packaging really is, I feel like, so I just don't know. It says it has 0.3 ounces in it, which I think is pretty standard for a concealer. So I guess it's not that bad, but just in general, I just don't think it's worth the price just because I don't think it's a good concealer. So I don't think I would want to just spend any money on it, no matter how little money. But unfortunately, that is ranked last. So let's go ahead and jump to number 7, which is the newest concealer to my collection. And I've been testing this out a little bit since I filmed a review video on it, but this is the Rem Concealer from Ariana Grande's makeup brand. Now I will say I actually really like the packaging. I was very excited to have a potted concealer. The cap feels a little bit cheap, but I love the glass container that the actual product is housed in. So I do really enjoy that. I feel like It's not a terrible size to be able to either dip your finger into or a sponge. I feel like it's pretty good. Kind of standard as far as a pot concealer goes, but it feels pretty nice. I have this one in the shade Fair 4CN, and this is very light for me actually. I prefer concealer that's closer to my skin tone. I should have mentioned that earlier, but I don't really like a concealer that's overly brightening underneath the under eyes. This formula does feel very creamy when you dip your finger into it. I think my opinion might be slightly different on this if I had a little bit of a deeper shade, but it's just so brightening under the under eyes that I don't enjoy it there. Another thing I want to mention is if a product is versatile, I like to be able to use my concealer underneath the eyes and also kind of around the face as needed, and occasionally as an eyeshadow primer. The more I've used this particular concealer, the more I've realized that, well, two things. I prefer this as an eyeshadow primer actually, and the second thing is that this gets better over time. Like when you first put it on, you're kind of thinking, this doesn't look that good. But as it sits on your skin and really melts into with the warmth of your skin, like it melts into your skin with the warmth, that was just a weird way to say that, but you get what I'm saying, as it kind of melts in and sinks into the skin, it does look a lot better. But I think this works really well as an eyeshadow primer. So it's pretty versatile because it does cover things pretty well. Like it's gonna make a decent spot concealer if you get the correct shade. This comes in 60 shades, which is amazing about the inclusivity, but it is very difficult to choose your shade online because of that, in my opinion, unless you're just a wizard at choosing your shade. I thought I was picking a really good one, just a little bit too light. It's not the end of the world by any means, but personally, I have not been reaching for this for an under eye concealer, so I had to take a couple points off for that because it's just not the best for every category, but I do really like it for the eyeshadow base. So I don't think this is bad. I should say that out of all of my concealers, the only one I think is bad is the Colourpop Pretty Fresh. So moving forward, starting with this one's kind of like okay, but I really like all the rest of them. I found some really good ones this year, but yeah, I just don't think this is perfect for me, but I think it's pretty good. It provides like a medium coverage. It's a little bit more dry looking compared to some other ones that I have, but I don't think it's bad. I do think the value is there. It's about $24, and I think the value is pretty good for what you're getting because I don't think it's a bad product at all. You get a pretty good amount of product. You're gonna get 0.28 ounces, but I feel like in more of a solid kind of texture, you're gonna actually take longer to go through this. It's just kind of what I'm anticipating, but we'll have to see. I just don't think this is perfect for the under eyes, which is typically the area of my face where I want my concealer to perform the best. So that's kind of why it's ranking a little bit lower, but I really don't think it's bad. It's just not perfect for me. So number 6 is going to have to go to the Koki Be Bright Concealer. And like I said, I really like all of the rest of these concealers, but this one has 0.21 fluid ounces. So I think that's like not that much for most concealers. I'm so confused by these concealers because they range so much in size, and I'm going to show you one in comparison to this in a minute, but this is kind of like the similar size to the NYX Butter Gloss lip gloss. I feel like a lot of us have that, so you can kind of compare it to that, but I don't like the shade of this one quite as much. It's a little bit more yellowy in person. I do have this one in the shade Fair, but this one's still really good. This one's a little bit lower because the packaging feels slightly cheaper. Even though it's affordable, I do really like their packaging. Like I like the way it looks, but it's plastic, it's kind of basic. Just looks a little bit cheaper, feels a little bit cheaper, but I don't mind it. It doesn't feel like bad, it just doesn't feel like as luxe. But mostly this one is lower because the coverage is a little bit lower. It's gonna provide more of like a light to medium coverage for a concealer in my opinion. And the shade is just quite yellow. So I don't really love that. It's just super peachy. Not my favorite tone, but it works. It's like when you blend it out, it kind of blends in with the skin. It doesn't look peach under the eyes as much as I thought it would when I first swatched it. So I do really like this, and I did have a video where I tested this. You can see it under the eyes, but I really, really like it. 5th place was really hard for me to place. It was a tie between this one and what's in 4th place, but 5th place, I put the Too Faced Born This Way concealer. Now let's talk about value because this is where this one really shines. This is about double the size of a typical concealer or half of the size of a normal foundation. It's got 0.5 fluid ounces, and I have this one in the shade Marshmallow. I've had this for so long and I've yet to use it up. I think I'm pretty close to using it up, but there's still a good amount of product in here. The reason this one ranked a little bit lower is because I do love that it's a high coverage concealer, but it can look slightly drying on my skin depending on what I'm putting it over and how well I've prepped the skin ahead of time. It doesn't really wow me as much under the under eyes because it looks a little bit more heavy. It's a more of a moussey kind of texture, so it's really nice. But where you're really getting the bang for your buck here is the value of this. It's essentially a drugstore price, so that's great. You're getting so much product. I do like the packaging. I feel like it's kind of like a nice basic packaging, but if you pull the wand out too soon, a little bit of the concealer, lately at least, has been kind of like flying out with it. So that's kind of like a negative kind of thing because you can like get on your clothes. That's not good. I don't really want it to do that. I've mentioned this a couple times on my channel, but I picked this up in 2020 because I accidentally gave myself a black eye. I was carrying something and it hit me in the eye, and then yeah, it was just a mess. So I got this to cover up the black eye. It did great. It covered up the black eye perfectly. It wears pretty well. All of these concealers I think wear pretty well for the most part, minus the Colourpop one. So that one's kind of ranking in number 5 because of all of those things. The color works pretty well for me. It's on the deeper side, so I wouldn't always reach for it, especially in the winter, but it's nice. I do like it. It definitely serves a purpose in my collection. But I will say I've been really enjoying this one in spot number 4 a little bit more. This is the Catrice Trueskin High Cover Concealer. I have this one in the shade 002 Neutral Ivory. I really love the packaging of this one. I think it's really pretty. It's very kind of luxe and just sleek looking. I really like it, but I noticed today that that's what the packaging looks like on the bottom. Why did they do that? Like, is this all that's in there and then this is just a bunch of plastic around it? That's so unnecessary. When you look at it from the side, it seems like it's almost full to the edge, but I really think it's just kind of an optical illusion, which is super frustrating because this product only has 0.15 fluid ounces. And if you remember, this tiny little one from Koki had 0.21 fluid ounces. So I will just say that the value is not here for this one, in my opinion, because these are a pretty similar price point, around $7 or $8 each. That just irritates me a little bit that this packaging is so large but has so little product. And compared to this one that has 0.5 fluid ounces, and again, this one has 0.15 fluid ounces, that's just a little bit insane to me. It's such a waste of plastic packaging. That's kind of why for the ranking, I wasn't really putting the price or the value into it. And that's, I think, why I didn't want to put the point system on this really, especially for this concealer category, because concealer is so personal as far as what is good about it. And so I don't know, I just feel like for me, if I find a good one, I don't mind paying a little bit more per ounce because I don't go through it as quickly as some others. So I don't know, I'm just kind of figuring out how I want to do that moving forward, but I really like this one. Compared to the Too Faced one, these are the two high coverage concealers in my collection. They cover about the same, but this one is a lot more creamy. It also has a nice like cooling sensation when you first apply it, which is just very nice and refreshing. I think the color of this is pretty good for my skin. I really like it all over the face. It works great under the eyes. Same thing for the Too Faced one. They both work really well, but it's less drying under the eyes, and I just enjoy using it more. I really like how creamy this feels. It wears well. Again, I do feel like it's a really good concealer. I really love the coverage of this product. I think it wears great. It looks great on the skin, and I really, really enjoy using it, especially for that $7 or $8 price range. Number 3, this is my most versatile concealer. I feel like I talk about this all the time, but this is the Rare Beauty Concealer. I have this in the shade 140C, and this is so good, you guys. I actually decluttered the foundation, but this concealer, I love it. I love it so much. You can probably tell how much I love it. I have already taken out the stopper and I've been scraping the sides. I love the wand on this. It's like nice and it's like firm, but it has a bit of an angle. So it's really nice for applying this under the eyes. But where this concealer shines is that is a fixer. This is a fixer concealer. So while it's not my favorite, it's not number 1 for under the eyes and like spot concealing, this is like a miracle product. This is the best concealer in my collection that can be applied over a powder product. So say you finish your entire face of makeup and then you want to add a little bit more bronzer, but then you realize, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. It really overdid it. You can go in with this and your sponge, put it over the face, and it's just going to kind of like tone down the whole look. or if your foundation doesn't match, but you don't realize it until you have your whole face done, you can really just adjust the look with this. And this has come in handy for me in my collection so many times. If you deepen up an eyeshadow look that you're really not wanting to deepen up that much, and you've done your matte shades, take a little bit of this on your sponge, blend it on the back of your hand, and then tap over the look, and it's just gonna lighten it up perfectly. It's just such a miracle product for me, so I really love it. Really love the packaging. The price point is honestly pretty good. I think it's around the $20 mark, and I think that's very impressive for this concealer. This one has 0.25 fluid ounces. This one has a similar amount to the Koki, but it has a little bit more even than the Koki one. So I really, really like this concealer. I feel like I've suggested it a ton on my channel, but it's just such a good miracle product, and especially a good like fixer product, which I really, really appreciate having in my collection, especially when you really need it in a pinch. But there are two that I reach for on a daily basis more consistently than that one. In second place, this used to be my number one, so this could have gone either way, but I will explain why this is number two. This is the Flower Beauty Light Illusion Concealer. This one I feel like is very polarizing, but the reason that I love this one as much as I do, there's two reasons. Number one, it is so creamy and it looks so just good on the under eyes. I love the way it looks under my eyes for every day. It's a nice medium coverage on me. I have this in the shade L1/2 Fair. This is not the lightest shade that it comes in, but I love the undertone of this. This is my favorite shade match of a concealer in my collection. Just to show you, let's just compare it to the Catrice one, because I really like this concealer as well. But when I compare it to the Catrice one, look how yellow that is. I love this. This is like the equivalent of my Purito BB cream undertone in a concealer. I just love that cool tone undertone so much. So that's kind of really what stands out for me about this one, is the color and the creaminess. It doesn't wear quite as long as some of my other concealers, and especially not as long as the first one in my list here. I feel like my list could change, honestly, you guys. This one's pretty dang good. But I really like this one for just every day. Love the undertone. Really love it for under the eyes. I don't love it quite as much for spot concealing, but I really, really like this one. I feel like I also use it up rather quickly. This one has 0.2 fluid ounces. So it's kind of in the middle there with the other ranges. Like I said, the Rare Beauty one had 0.25, so it's kind of in that sort of a range. But I feel like I kind of go through this one quickly. It's a little bit more of like a whipped texture, so I feel like you're using slightly more of it every time that you use it, but it really blends out very creamy. So I really love this one. I actually really like the packaging too. It's nice, skinny packaging. It's not super bulky, but it is, you know, I feel like every concealer is going to have like a little bit of a gap with the plastic, but it's not overly bulky. I really like this. It doesn't bring out too much product at once. The doe foot is nice and firm again as well. I prefer a firm doe foot, I guess, especially for when you need to scrape the sides of it. You can do that without feeling like you might break it off. So I really like this one a lot. But there's one that I like a little bit more. And I do have one disappointing downside for this one. But at number one, if you haven't guessed it yet, this one's actually pretty new to me, and it's the Pure Cosmetics 4-in-1 Sculpting Concealer. This one actually let me down a little bit when I first got it, because this is a concealer that used to have the little button, and you'd press the button and the top would kind of like shoot up. Like that's how you opened it instead of twisting it. But you now twist it, but it still kind of like pops up immediately. So you like twist it a little bit. I'll show you. And then it just pops up without you having to actually like remove the wand. I love the packaging, other than the fact that I kind of wanted the little like push button. And the tester in the store had the push button, and then when I got it and I got it in the car and I went to swatch it on my hand because I was so excited, it didn't have that anymore. So that was a little bit frustrating. That's literally the only downside I have for this entire concealer. I really love the wand on this one too. I think it's very nice. It's like a really good shape for under the eyes. I wanted to kind of compare this one to the Flower Beauty one. It's more of a neutral color. As you can see, it's not as cool tone as that, which sometimes I don't want the cool tone, you know, concealer for every single look, but this one works no matter what. It's a little bit more, you know, yellowy, of course, than the Flower Beauty one, but when you blend this into the skin, it blends in with your skin. On me at least, it doesn't show yellow at all. It just kind of blends in perfectly, and you would never know that it was slightly yellow on my skin if you just kind of compared the swatch to it. As you blend it in, it just magically matches your skin no matter what. It's very creamy, but it gives, I would say, a high medium coverage, maybe a low full coverage, but I wouldn't say it's as full coverage as either the Catrice one or the Too Faced one. But I really think that it gives a good amount of coverage. It gives more coverage than the Flower Beauty one. It wears longer. The shade looks great. It's perfect for all over the face. It's perfect for under the eyes. It's perfect for whatever you need it for. Love the packaging, love the wand. I also feel like this is a pretty universal concealer because it's not overly creamy. It's not going to crease excessively. Every concealer, in my opinion, is going to crease because most of us have some sort of a crease underneath our eyes. It's just like how our bodies are. You just have a crease under your eye. If you don't, lucky you, I do at least. And every concealer is going to crease if you just let it sit there. This one isn't going to emphasize any fine lines, any wrinkles. It works fine too if you want to use it as an eyeshadow base. All of these work fine as an eyeshadow base. I would say the Rare Beauty one has a little bit of like a lighter medium coverage, which is why it's so perfect for kind of like washing over the face. I would say it's like high light coverage or low medium coverage. So that one I wouldn't say is perfect for over the eyes as an eyeshadow primer, but this one works great for that as well. It doesn't, emphasize anything. If you let one eye of concealer sit while you do the other eye, you will have to tap out the crease. At least on me, I have creases in my eyes, of course. So you will have to tap it out, but it's going to work really great at kind of gripping onto your eyeshadow. Your eyeshadow will blend perfectly over it. Really, really love this concealer. And I think that it kind of explains why it's #1, even though it's newer to my collection. And that's the case with several of these. I have 5 new concealers in my collection, so I think that that kind of makes sense to have them kind of be sprinkled in just because I only had a few to start out with. So I think I actually had some gaps in my concealer collection that I didn't realize until I tried some of these new ones. But that's going to be my ranking for my concealers. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I know a couple of you said that you would like to see it, so thank you guys for watching. Let me know down below if you've tried any of these concealers and also how you might rank your own or where in the list some of these would fall for you. But if you guys enjoyed today's video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to my channel if you want to see more content from me. Be sure to let me know in the comments if there's any other categories in my makeup that you'd like to see ranked. But with that being said, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!